welcome to the Friends of Mr. Ed podcast, episode 2. I'm Belinda Myers and I'm here with the founders of Friends of Mr. Ed and the creators of the Fred app. Amy Thompson is the co-founder and CEO, and Rich Busso is the co-founder and COO. We're also lucky today to be joined by Bruce Slade, a very well-known bloodstock consultant. He runs Kestrel Thoroughbreds and he's a Friends of Mr. Ed advisor. He's been on board with the Fred app from the very early days and is pretty excited to see how we're going to shake things up in the world of ownership. Before we chat to Bruce, we need an update on Fred very quickly. Amy, how have the first few weeks been?
Yeah, it's been really exciting. So we launched 3 weeks ago. We've got some really great numbers on the app, lots of fantastic feedback. So we're really excited. We're in Melbourne, of course, and Bruce is up in Queensland. And Bruce and Natasha had a beautiful event for a horse naming event for one of the fillies that I'm in. It's a winning Rupert Claudia Jean filly. And I have to say, Bruce, I was laughing a little bit because the event was fantastic. They had a cake cutting for the naming of the horse, and all the members that were in Melbourne, all the owners, were on a Zoom call. And all the ladies up in Queensland were sitting around this table getting drunk and having a fantastic time. So I was laughing a lot.
Gender reveal one? I think I saw something on...
Yeah, we were like the poor cousins that didn't get invited to the party. So I thought that was quite funny.
That's the story of our lives here in Melbourne at the moment. So... Bruce is in Queensland, the lucky thing. So we're very happy that he's joined us on the podcast today. Bruce is one of the most accomplished bloodstock and breeding experts in Australia. He's worked with Gai Waterhouse, more recently Newgate Farm in the Hunter Valley, and now he heads up his own consultancy, Kestrel Thoroughbreds. Welcome to the podcast, Bruce.
Yeah, thank you, Belinda. It was a good event the other day. I thought the Melbourne team did a great job. It joined in from afar via Zoom, dressed up, a lot of them, in racing attire, and I'd say they're drinking just as much as the people in Queensland, to be fair.
We wanted a piece of that cake though, Bruce.
Yeah. Doesn't travel that well. It got to our house and we got demolished, so sorry about that.
Yeah, I bet.
When you join the Fred app, when I joined the Fred app and set up my profile, I ask you why you love racing, and my profile says racing is my life, which is very short and sweet. Bruce, what does your profile on the Fred app say?
When you came up with that question, I thought, what did I put there? And it turns out I put my my link to my website. So I was feeling very businessy and very, I suppose, entrepreneurial at the time. But I suppose the website does give you a good insight into why I love racing. It's got all the sort of horses I've been involved with and been lucky enough to sort of followed in my career so far. And like you, it is my life. You know, it's literally every single second of my day, pretty much outside of family nowadays, is thinking about racing or breeding or horses. And I'm one of those boring people at the dinner party that, like, if you're not talking horses, it's beyond my the context of what I can discuss, you know what I mean? So it always sort of tends
so you can't even discuss rugby, Bruce, being in New Zealand, surely. Come on.
I talk about the All Blacks a fair bit, but it's embarrassing in Australia, so that conversation stops pretty quickly, You
can talk about your tan that you're getting up in Queensland. Well, we're getting all pasty down here. But what's the best horse you've been involved in your time?
Oh, big call. It's a bit like I was looking at your profile there on First Light Racing, Belinda, and it's like you've got your best horse, like the best horse, and then you've also got those horses that were just specialty. So I've got a ton of special horses that I've been lucky enough to be involved in. But I'd say the best of the best, if any were to meet on a given day, the best horse I've been involved with is Piero for sure. He was an out-and-out champion,
Unbelievable. What was that like? What was that ride like, being part of his career?
It was very special. I mean, he was a horse we purchased at the Magic Million sales, and what made it cool, and actually probably ties very much into the Fred app, actually, is the family that bought him, Greg Kolovos and Donna Kolovos and Alex Kolovos, that bought Piero to be trained by Gai. They were just made us feel so part of the journey, like it was their horse, obviously, but all of the team at Gai's, Greg and Donna would be down there. Gai does a great thing every Sunday, has all their owners down there. we got to know Greg and Donna and Alex really well. So every time we went to the races, it sort of, he felt like ours, and they bought us jackets, and we very much felt connected to Piero and the whole family. So every little win meant that much more. And I think that's what this app's going to do, right? It's just about having that deeper connection with your other owners in the horse. And when you've got that, it's like when your son wins a rugby game, or your brother does very well in business, or whatever it might be, it just means that much more to you. And I think that's what this Fred app's going to do. We're going to all be backing each other in. We're all going to be cheering each other on the races. It makes that hug after the win a little bit less awkward. We can get around each other. And,
Amy, make that hug less awkward. That sounds like a good tagline.
That's a new marketing slogan.
So, yeah, that's why it was just super special, because of the people involved, and he was just a horse that would win from impossible positions, and he was just a really special horse. And now a very good stallion, obviously, and doing a great job with studs, so nice to follow his success there too.
Yeah, we've got a very nice Piero filly that I just missed out on a share in with First Light a couple of weeks ago. I know I'm going to regret it, but you can't have them all, I suppose. 8 is enough for now, and we'll see what happens. But speaking of getting started in ownership, can you tell me about, or Rich, I might ask you, the time you first met Bruce and how his involvement with Fred all kicked off?
Yeah, so we went to the Inglis sales in Melbourne, and we saw a Schnitzel filly come up, and we went and spoke to Gai Waterhouse, and the lovely Gai Waterhouse, and the next minute we were in a coffee shop in Melbourne purchasing a share in the lovely filly, which is now called Sweet Redemption. And during that experience, we just really loved having a share of a racehorse. It was our first racehorse. We were based in Melbourne. It was trained in Sydney with Gai and Bruce and the Round Table Racing colours. And, through our digital backgrounds, we created a WhatsApp group and started chatting. And, back then the communication from Gai's team wasn't that great. It's definitely improved now. But we thought there was a better way. So we came up with the concept of the Fred app.
And you're on board from early days, Bruce?
Yeah, 100%. I think... a big reason why we play the game and we own horses is not because we're trying to make money out of it, right? It's the people you meet along the way. It's the excitement and the build-up of the journey through the education, through to trials and races. So the beautiful thing about this Fred app is that, past or even current, I'd say for 99.9% of the industry, is you get an email update or a video update or something once a week from your trainer direct to the owner, but there's very little owner-to-owner contact and communication. So it's not until you get to the races on a decent day where people feel that they need to travel and will go and watch it, that you sort of start to get to meet other people, and it sort of becomes this one-off every 3 or 4 weeks that you get to see them, whereas the Fred app is... just allows you to build on the excitement. When you get your update, you can discuss it. You can, talk a little bit of tactics maybe, or, what you were happy with, what you're unhappy with, whatever. It just adds to the whole experience, I think. And that's where the Fred app's going to take us in the whole industry. And Australia is at the forefront probably of owner communication in world racing, which is scary when you think how archaic we are in many ways. And this is this app being developed is a real step forward in engaging more people, right? Like, this is just exciting. Like, I think Australia's got the highest proportion ratio of racehorse owners to population in the world. And this app is going to allow you to, it's going to allow you to bring on your uncle, your brother, your sister. They may not have equity in the horse, but they can share in the journey and the fun. And guess what? The next one that comes up, they want to have a little piece of, right? And this is just going to spread like wildfire. You can see, as long as you do it well, and like any platform, you're respectful of each other and kind to each other, and use it for positive things. This is just going to be the most incredible and most powerful thing for the thoroughbred racing industry, and it'll be it can only be plus and positive and benefit for trainers and breeders and agents and syndicators and race clubs and the whole lot, because the more engagement we have, the healthier sport we have,
Yeah, we really I mean, we're obviously owners as well, Bruce. So we selfishly built this app almost for ourselves in some ways. Like we know that there's amazing people in the industry, and especially ones that are not in your state. So if we ever get out of COVID and we get to travel somewhere, we'll come up to Brisbane, and now we know who the other owners are in the horse, and they might introduce us to the locals or go out for a beer with them or whatever it is. So
Accommodation.
yeah, accommodation, the whole lot. So for me, it's also been able to put a face to the name. So when you do have that awkward hug, you really know who you're hugging. It's an important part of the app, yeah.
And
Yeah, I'd
one
say
day we'll be
Airbnb will be in trouble. Uber will be in serious trouble. Like it's going to be all this sharing arrangements will be done through the Fred app.
Yeah,
Correct.
maybe you're right. Maybe that's the next extension, Airbnb.
I think you've got enough on your plate at the moment, Amy, with the app. What's the feedback the last few weeks? The people that are getting on board, what are the sorts of things that you're hearing from them?
I think, look, one of the really interesting things that we get to see, which is people's profiles, you mentioned that earlier, they absolutely love racing. Like the amount of people that have said racing is their life and they love the sport. They're super passionate. They're about the social side of racing. And it sort of just validates actually everything that we're doing. Like people don't get into racing because they're trying to make their millions. It's literally like their passion. And so I think some of the other stories we've had friends that create syndicates, and those syndicates' sole purpose is to travel around regional Victoria, for example, and attend all the sort of regional cups. I just love those sort of stories where you've got groups of people getting together in syndicates, and this app can really facilitate that kind of networking with your mates and having a good time.
Yeah, I want to ask you about sort of the next step of the app, Bruce, the kind of the marketplace side to it. But before that, can you just step us through? There's a lot of people that are new to horse racing that follow us and will be listening to this podcast. Can you take us through what a day in the life of a bloodstock consultant, or what a day in your life looks like?
Yeah, sure, Belinda. I wear two main hats. I'm a consultant to Edmonds Racing here on the Gold Coast, so Toby and Trent Edmonds, who train here, and I also consult to Newgate Farm in the Hunter Valley. So I suppose the biggest part of my role is a communications/sales role for both operations. So a lot of my time is just spent on relationship building, and when it comes to sales, just trying to tie in solutions, whether it be racehorse ownership or mating advice that can hopefully end in a net benefit to whoever the client is. So a lot of my day, first thing in the morning, I'd touch base with both operations. We'd talk to our teams about what we've got going for the day, and then from there it's a lot of email and phone contact, just either building relationships or building on relationships. And right now we're the 1st September is 11 days away, and that's when obviously our breeding season in Australia starts. On the 1st September, across Australia at midnight, the stallions start covering mares to produce foals the following year for that crop of young thoroughbreds. So we've got 13 stallions at Newgate, and we obviously are trying to attract the best possible mares in the highest quantities to them to give them their shot at stud. So at this stage, a lot of them are fully booked, full book consisting of, say, 200 mares from across the different parts of Australia coming to visit these stallions at Newgate. So that to be a thoroughbred, you have to be live bred as well. There's no AI, so you have to be live bred. So the mare has to come physically on farm and be covered. And they'll cover 3 or 4 times a day, the busy stallions. And like I say, my role at the moment is heavily based around trying to get as many mares to those stallions as possible, and then obviously through the process, just be there and be helpful to help people gain pregnancies, which of course become thoroughbreds after that.
We've got like Airbnb and maybe Uber, so we can throw in Tinder as well, it sounds like, into the app.
100%, that's where it's leading. I'm very keen to get a wrist here, actually. So I'm really glad we're chatting today, Belinda. This is sort of wearing my Newgate hat. Just thinking that it might be a great match for Capitalist when he's the leading first crop side next year.
It's exciting.
Wow, that certainly piques my interest. We might have to have a chat after the podcast, and I'll do some negotiating on behalf of my fellow owners. But being on the obviously I'm on the ownership side. I dabble in a bit of sales myself for First Light. What do you see as the opportunities for Fred, for people like us that trade horses effectively, and always looking for new platforms and ways to get to new people and get new people into ownership?
Yeah, I think it's just going to have a huge part to play, Belinda, because as you know, like sales is not hard if you've got strong demand and you've got a really engaged client base, right? Because they've been communicated to very well, because they're being serviced very well, because they're enjoying the experience very much. And I just think the Fred app is going to really assist us with the engagement, with our ability to communicate very well with people and just really add to their whole racehorse ownership experience. So that's where we're going to win, by engaging Fred first and getting our clients on board and really being able to up the level of service. That then leads to a very engaged client base that when you come up and you have your next horse to sell that you believe in, you're going to have a really an audience there that's got an appetite to get involved and have more of what they're enjoying,
And that additional circle of people, Amy and Rich, you mentioned before, or Bruce mentioned before, it is about inviting your dad, your uncle, your sister, whoever in. What's the offer for those sorts of people?
So the Fred app allows you to log on and follow your own horses. But, as an owner myself, Amy and I now have 12 horses, so we've definitely grown our stable.
On up to 12.
Yeah. What we found was that we had a lot of people asking us, when your horse is racing, what's the update on this particular horse? So Fred allows those types of friends and family or hyper fans find the horse and then connect themselves to me or the owner. So it really enables that community effect. And what we find is those people that follow you, they get FOMO when they end up buying a share in a horse, and then before you know it, they have three. Yeah. And a lot of we create syndicates when we buy shares in horses, and we try to get first time owners. And a lot of those first-time owners now have, 3 to 5 horses, which is great for the industry.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. Well, I'm obviously on the Fred app. You're on the Fred app. Bruce is on the Fred app. Hopefully after this podcast, we're welcoming lots of new owners to the Fred app. But before we let you go, Bruce, we want to ask you, you mentioned the breeding season's not far off starting. What are you most excited about for this season?
Oh, Belinda, I'd say like any breeding season, it's, last season you've covered all of these mares. Newgate Stallions would have covered sort of 1,300 mares last year, and all those mares are due to foal, right? So they started foaling, and it's there's nothing more exciting than that. So it's like it's like opening a little Christmas present and not knowing what's going to come out, and there's this living, breathing thoroughbred that gets to its feet in 5 or 10 minutes and stands there before you, and might have a little bit of patch on it, white on its head. It might have a lot of white, might be chestnut, might be bay, might be a colt, might be a filly, and it's such an exciting time because all that hard work, planning is and care and nurture of that mare and through the whole process has resulted in this little bundle of joy. So I'd say for breeders, that's the most exciting thing, and looking forward to, lots of foals on the ground and getting around them and getting to go and see them.
Did you time the birth of your child at this time as well, Bruce?
Terrible timing. Terrible timing, but I will note it's 9 months pretty much next week on the back of New Year's Eve, so it was a good New Year.
Yeah, very good.
Excellent. I reckon that goes on the bucket list of every horse racing fan and owner to actually experience seeing the birth of a foal live and those first few moments where the foal finds its feet. We might put you down for taking us on that experience one day in the future when we can get up to Queensland or to the Hunter Valley. But thanks for joining us.
On that. Just sorry, quickly on that. And that's the other great thing about the Fred app, right, is like you can follow the horse's post journey. So you've got this great connection with them all the way through. They sold then to a big breeder to go and to be a broodmare. And guess what? You can still follow them through their journey of becoming a mum and producing her own racehorses, etc. So that's another great part of the Friends app. It's beyond the ownership where you still get to follow your thoroughbred through.
I look forward to following Aristia when she has her babies with Capitalist in a few years.
Please, God, that'd be great. Thank you.
We've got a date booked in.
Yeah, great. I'll send you the contract.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Rich and Amy, for joining us. I know we've got a long list of questions for Bruce that we'd love to get into, so we might have to get him back onto the podcast in the coming weeks, but we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you very much, Belinda. Take care.
Thank you.
That was Amy Thompson and Rich Busso from Friends of Mr. Ed talking about the Fred app with Bruce Slade. Clearly, Bruce is a big fan of the app, and if you'd like to check it out, you can head on over to the Apple App Store or Google Play, or check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or at friendsofmred.com.